if I can do 10% of what that guy's doing, I can be like the Rolls Royce of apprenticeships in Thetford. 30% of our workforce are current or ex-apprentices of Warren Services. You know, you can be on top of the world and think, I can climb Everest or whatever, but then something happens and you go down.
Hello and welcome to another MTD Podcast. I'm Paul Jones, the Managing Director and founder of MTDCNC.com. We're recording this podcast today from our headquarters in Findon. We've got a brilliant guest with us. I'm really excited about what we're going to be discussing, and that's probably a good place to start. I'm joined today on this podcast by Richard Bridgman OBE, founder, owner of Warren Services, a company that I'm sure if you listen to our podcasts or watch our videos, you'll be very familiar with, based in Norfolk. Got some trading history, and we will discuss that company throughout the course of this podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Richard, firstly.
Thank you very much.
I'm also joined by Giovanni Albanese, who is a proud member, as he says in his own, is it autobiography that you say when you introduce the podcasts? Maybe that's the incorrect word, but proud industry man, obviously working for MTDCNC as well. Now, the big theme of today's podcast is going to be talking about passions for training, getting the youth into our industry. We'll be touching on Richard's past, and that's probably really a good place to start, because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will know Richard, will have either met him or heard of him, but it will be great for you to just give us a quick overview, Richard, of your history and where you came from in your journey in manufacturing.
Right, where did I come from? Well, I left school at 15, stroke 16, and went straight into an apprenticeship. Quite proud of the fact that I used to cycle to work, and that was, to begin with, 27 miles. So now when these kids say, I can't get into work or whatever, you know, they just don't know what they're talking about. My father was a big wig in British Aerospace, or just before then, Vickers Armstrong, and he went from biplanes to Concorde. He went all over the world for them or whatever, and very much like me, too much to say. Otherwise, I believe he would possibly have been a director of, British Aerospace. But he had a fantastic life, and probably that's what inspired me to go. Now, I didn't want to be my father's son working at Weybridge. That's where he worked. So I went off and worked for a subcontractor in Molesey called Cardinal Engineering. So that's where I started my apprenticeship.
When would that have been, Richard? What year? There's dates down
Christ I'm 74 now, so anybody can work that out. So it's a long while ago.
Early 60s.
Yes, yeah. And at that time, that was day release, and I still think that's good to this day, day release. And at nights, we used to do one long day. So it was day school and then night school. And I went to Richmond, which was part of Kingston College then, which is now a university, which is, it gave me a good ground and everything like that. But whilst I was there, I was an apprentice toolmaker. Whilst I was there was two guys who I worked with, and I still think this is fantastic about apprenticeships. One of the main guys was Big Jim, and I worked for Big Jim, and he taught me all I knew about...
he was a little fella.
Yeah, he was big, yeah. But ironically, there was another guy with him, and he was Cliff Richards, but he wasn't the Cliff Richards. But they were both tool makers, and I did my apprenticeship with them, and they decided to set up in their own business, and they set up in a lock-up garage. And I used to go after work and work with them whilst I was still an apprentice. And then when I left, I went to work them permanently. But by then, I think we'd got another lock-up garage and another one, and we joined them all together. So it was really quite shanty town. Actually, coming here today, I must polish shanty towns or whatever. But
what are you trying to say?
No, and I worked for them. And I would say to people now, it was a partnership between the two of them. But I've now learned that really partnerships don't work, because one wanted to keep his money in the business and one wanted to take his money out. And one eventually left, and the other guy, actually Cliff Richards, I worked for 22 years. and it'll all be all right one day, it'll all be yours. But after 22 years, it didn't happen. So that's how I come to start up my own business along with my wife. But really, she started a business. I always say that she's the brain and I'm the brawn of the business. But during the time that I was an apprentice, that was down in Molesey and Walton-on-Thames. At that time, we were doing a lot of work for a company up in Fakenham called FMC. And my governor used to drive up and down and pick work up, take it back or whatever. And that was part of when they started having the London overspill. We were the second phase, but at that time they wanted to move businesses out of London and you were encouraged to move out. And we took 2 units up in Brandon, Suffolk, and that's how I come to be up in Norfolk/Suffolk.
How does what is industry like in that area? Because when it comes to coverage, we go all over the UK, but less frequently in that territory.
What, you're talking about Norfolk
and Suffolk? Yeah.
Well, when we moved up there, it was a struggle to find people, because you haven't got a background of engineers. All right, if you go way back, they built the steam tractors there and everything like that. But when we went there, it was very difficult to get apprentices, to get young people or skills. So that's when it really made me realise that we needed to do something about skills. That's why when I was working for the other company.
Richard, it's been lovely to hear your story. I'm sure it's been quite entertaining as well for our listeners. I had the pleasure of coming to visit you guys when we first met at Warren Services on behalf of Autodesk. Got to be about 3 or 4 years ago now when I first started at MTD. Can you tell our listeners how that business has evolved and a little bit about the business at Warren Services? Right. I was very, very impressed.
If I go back quickly, I know I'm probably rambling on a little bit or whatever, but my wife and I started a business 30 years ago in a little old Flint school in Feltwell in Norfolk. Just being a subby, really, somebody wanted something made, we made it and everything like that. Now we've got 80,000 square feet. I would never, ever believe we would get to that size or whatever. So soon on then, I realised that when we started our own, I've got to do some training. Being an apprentice myself, I thought, well, I know the answer. So then we went out to colleges and everything like that. And we ended up going to one of the local colleges. I won't name it because after 1 year, they thought, we've got some bright guys here or whatever. They came in and interviewed us and they said, we'd like to engage with you more. And I said, well, what course is this lad going to do next year? Well, what has he done? I said, he's done this. Well, why did he do that? I said, because you told us he should do that or whatever. So then I realised that colleges weren't delivering what businesses wanted. So I then said to the guy, that guy, and then we started another apprentice, you go out and interview the other colleges in the area. So they went off to another college, and that was pretty good or whatever. But over the years, colleges haven't delivered generally what businesses want. It's completely changed now. Many people might have heard me say this before, but I can remember not so long ago, probably, 10 years ago, getting up at a big meeting with, or probably, 1,000 people there with MPs or whatever, and I got up and I said, I think most colleges are shit. Because you're not delivering what businesses want. So that was it. And that time I'd really gone through the programme of thinking I'm going to start my own apprenticeship school up. And at that time I was chair of SEMTA, which was receiving money for the government, and they wanted to encourage me to do it. But then, like all things, the plug was pulled on that, so they want the money there. And so I thought, that's it. I've had enough with training or whatever. So I went away and sucked my wounds and everything like that. But then I got invited over to West Suffolk College, and the principal over there is called Nikos. And I can remember being in his room, and he came in and he said, Richard, I hear you think most colleges are... And I thought, this is a guy I can work with. And I've worked with him for many, many years now. Fantastic guy, drive and everything like that. And that college is like, if every college is like that college, it'd be fantastic.
So what were the other colleges doing wrong and that doing right?
What were the other... Well, to be quite honest, probably West Suffolk at that time were still doing what they wanted to do. I've got a pivotal moment when I was learning about things. I went to down to the missile company, MBDA, and there's a guy there called Gareth. Oh, his name's gone from me now, but just unbelievable guy, and blew me away. And I thought, if I can do 10% of what that guy's doing, I can be like the Rolls Royce of apprenticeships in Thetford. And I think we've reached that now. But what Gareth used to say was, you tell the colleges what you want, not what this is what we're delivering. You tell them what we want. And whenever he had a function or anything, he made sure that the schools and colleges brought the equal amount of male and female to them and everything like that. You know, they as a company can afford to pay a lot more than most companies or whatever, but he had it about right and stuff like that. So, you know, I mean, I say to everybody else, if you're thinking about apprenticeship, look at what other people are doing, everything like that. And also, one of the most crucial things before you start an apprenticeship, do some work experience. We don't take any young people into our business until they've come and done some work experience with us, because when they come in, you don't know whether they're going to be any good. Do they turn up on time? How do they mix with the other people there? And that's their decision time to do it.
And it's a good opportunity for them as well to see if they actually like the job.
That is it, you know, but things have changed now, you know, I mean, apprenticeships in engineering, everybody thinks it's a dirty old game or whatever. You know, your MTD CNC, you know, I mean, CNC is everywhere now. We've got very few manual machines now.
I mean, I was impressed with your facility, and not only the facility, but like you mentioned, you had a lot of apprentices on site, but not just how you didn't just have apprentices. What struck me was how you treated the apprentices and how you trained the apprentices, and the kind of structure that you had for them and the opportunities that were also available for them. I mean, some of the presentations that were done that day were done from your apprentices, and they were fantastic. So, I mean, there are companies out there that do kind of use apprentices just to push buttons effectively, but it doesn't seem to be the case. And you might as well say
the other one, cheap labour.
And cheap labour. And it's not the case at your place, is it?
By Christ, no.
But tell us what you've done in this period and how you've gone about taking on more apprentices. Have you set up your own school to do this? Have you competed with the colleges? What's happened in this time?
No, as I said, we were going to set up our own school, and I'm glad possibly that we didn't do it now, because you know it could have deflected our attention to our business, and business goes up and down. You know, you can be on top of the world and think, oh, I can climb Everest or whatever, but then something happens and you go down. You know, our business is over the 30 years has had its ups and downs and stuff like that. You know, but we're building on that. You know, now 30% of our workforce are current or ex-apprentices of Warren Services, and I'm proud of that fact. You know, I knew the way forward for young people, being an apprentice myself, is that way. And we've got close links with the local college, the UT. We've got a fantastic UTC up in Norwich. You know, I mean, there's a lot of bad press about UTCs and everything like that, but the quality of the people that the UTC are sending to us. But now we're working with them. Will's just been recognised by Make UK for, during the pandemic, we couldn't obviously have open days and everything like that. So he did videos, podcasts, and then online and everything like that. So we've been recognised as a company for
adapting to the circumstances.
Warren, you asked me our philosophy. You give Warren Services a problem, we will find a solution to it. We might come back and say, sorry, we can't do it, but that's very unrare. You know, it's very rare. There's always an answer, you know. And
so you as owner-founder, the structure of the company's obviously changed in recent years or decades. Your son now is the managing director,
yeah,
and your daughter's in the business as well.
That's
is
it.
That right?
She's a director as well.
Okay,
yes.
Where just out of interest, where did the name Warren come from?
Well, when the company I was working for was a company called Aishan Engineering, or had Lezard Engineering. You know, you can make a director of somebody, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. I left who I'd worked for 22 years with nothing. But fortunately, the bank manager who I knew, he said, well, you want to set up on your own, Richard, or whatever. But I'd signed a contract many years before, you know, and it was a contract that said you've got to work for another 3 years before, and you get into the European. So we had to set a company up. Well, the house we were living in was called Warren Lodge, because it had a lot of rabbits in the garden and stuff like
I was
that.
going to say, I wondered whether we were going in that
I
direction.
quite often get called Mr. Warren, that's just the way it is, So, but Warren Services, if you think it's not Warren Engineering, it's Warren. So it can be
broad.
anything, and it's served us well for that. Yeah.
OBE. How did this happen, and what's it like?
Well, I didn't know it was going to happen, because I'd like to think that most people. I didn't even have an inkling. Apparently, some of my family did, because they were asked to, what I'd done over a previous time. But I've since found out. But it came through the DWP. They put me forward. But obviously, when it goes down for selection, it isn't just one person. They then go into the background of what you are or whatever. But I've been working in Norfolk at the time for 25 years, or when the business started, because we moved from the old school to from Feltwell to Thetford in Norfolk. So I needed somewhere where I could have a bigger premises, but I didn't want to lose the people that we were employing. So Thetford served us well. But then I was involved way back from shaping Norfolk's future. All these fancy things come in to make things better or whatever. So I was involved with shaping Norfolk's future. So way back, I've been banging on about apprenticeships for year after year. And it wasn't flavour of the month, Maggie Thatcher, I've got a lot of time for Maggie and everything like that. And I'm a Conservative by default. I think they're the best of the worst. But even now we've made some unbelievable mistakes or whatever, and I tell them so. But she didn't, it was all to do with service industries. We can make more money out of service industries than actually manufacturing. That's been proved wrong now and everything like that. So, but we've been working with the DWP, with the less fortunate NEETs, not in what's NEET stand for? I can't remember now. Not in employment or whatever. But also I've always tried to give work experience to people, whether it's been young people or people from the DWP. But many years ago, and I'll tell you, there's a fantastic who runs the DWP in Norfolk, Suffolk and Cambridgeshire called Julia Nix. You come across these people every now and then. She's just unbelievable.
So what is a DWP?
Department of Work and Pensions, sorry.
Oh, right, that's all right.
The job centre.
Were you thinking the same?
I've just written it down there for you.
I've got to teach you guys quite a lot, actually, isn't it? You know what I mean? You go back to the Dole and everything like that, and everybody didn't want to know about the DW. And everybody would say, oh, yeah, we can't work with the job centre and this and they only send us a load of rubbish or whatever. No, things have changed. The dark ages of job centres and everything like that changed. They're really on board and everything like that.
And Richard, what's this 5% club?
Hang on, before we do it, OBE, I'm keen to know.
OBE.
Sorry, yeah. So how did it happen, and how did you get it, and what's it like? Because Gio wants to.
Right,
be
he's got his name down. Funny enough, somebody has said to me that they want to get one. You don't know where it comes from or whatever. I spoke to somebody, funny enough, walking the other day, and she started at OBE. Oh, other buggers' efforts. That's what I said. Hold on a sec. No. That's not what it's all about. But so I was recognised by Julia, and she put my name forward. But then obviously there's quite a process that, Buckingham Palace then checked everything, because there has been mistakes made by appointing people. But when the day was just unbelievable. You're allowed to take your wife, be pre-COVID, and 2 people with you. So my wife came with me and my son and daughter. And my son had decided, Will, that he wanted to drive through the gates. Unbeknown to us, that's quite a big problem, because if you want to drive in there, you've got the police going round and everything like that. But when you go in there, it's just you've got the soldiers with all the plate on and the plumes. You start twitching, it just. And Prince William gave me my.
Did he? Yeah. So who else did you meet on that day?
Well, funny enough, and I didn't realise at the time,
Do they do it in like batches? You know, I'm not saying get you in and get you out, but when you're presented.
No, to be honest, it is a bit get you in, get you out, or whatever. But everybody's made to feel so important. And what's nice there is lots of people there who've done far better things than I have, been recognised for helping disabled people and all manner of things from Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and it's like a little kind of family thing, you know. It's just unbelievable. You don't get a cup of tea or anything like that, or what? No, you don't get any refreshments. But
there is no hospitality involved in it?
No, there's no hospitality there. You're taken off separately from your family. They go off into this fantastic room and they've got a band playing and everything like that. The whole occasion is fantastic, and it's a day to remember. And I've got a picture on my phone. I decided I organised dinner for, was it 16, at the Goring Hotel. Do you remember they had the royal wedding and somebody stayed at the Goring Hotel? I thought, I'm going to stay there. And I remember organised this dinner, and he said, you can't have 16 people. So I organised 2 tables of 8 and everything. Anyhow, right rigmarole. And then I wasn't going to stay there. I was going to stay at the Premier. And my son said, for Christ's sake, Dad, you ain't going to get an OBE again. So we stayed there and everything. But we came back after the presentation. We got all the pictures and everything like that. And they take a video. And they take a fantastic video where they pick out your family as well and everything like that. So you got all that. But we went back to the Goring and we just had a whale of a time. There was friends and family from all round and everything like that.
And you stayed there and everyone else stayed at the Premier League?
No, we stayed the night before, and then we went home or whatever. But, yeah, it's a day to remember, you know, and...
well, congratulations.
Well, I'm glad you got a cup of tea at MTD Towers today, Rich. But no, that's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That's not the right word, the pomp and ceremony, but you know, we had the beef eaters and everything. Yeah.
No, and you're still doing work now with Parliament, aren't you? Is that correct? To a certain degree.
Well, yeah, I'm involved a little bit because I've got my political connections. Funnily enough, on the way up here today, I had a phone call from somebody from St James, St James's or whatever, and you start thinking, oh yeah, why do they want? Anyhow, Big Ben is nearly finished to be refurbished, and they're going to do a big thing about it with Prince Charles or whatever, and we'd like you to be involved because we've heard a lot about you from different people or whatever. And I'm thinking, what's going to... All right, so before you go, how much is it going to cost me? You know, then she told me how much. They're going to have a book, and we only so and special people. But you know, we've all been. I said I'll think about it because I think I can spend far more that money better on my apprentices. But you asked about the 5%
yes,
club. Right. I'm surprised you guys, being who you are and all over the country, don't know about the 5% club.
We thought it was something rude, didn't we?
Yeah, well, I was a bit. Yeah, no. Before we embark on this, but I can assure you it's not.
I've been part of the 5% club for many. The company's been part of the 5%. Every company who belongs to the 5% club guarantees that 5% of their employees will be training at apprentices or degrees or anything like that. And it doesn't mean you've got to take 5% of your workforce every year, because some courses are 3 or 4 years. You know, we've got people now who are doing level 3 and going on to degrees, so they're doing it over several years. But now they've now formalised in the 5% club, because up to now it's never cost you anything to join, and it still won't cost you anything to join. But if you want to have your business validated or whatever, there's going to be a cost, and they want the facts and figures of everything, your gender and everything like that, probably beyond what I think we need. But I've had to pay, as a small business, £500 for it, and I'm straight away saying, well, hold on a sec. I know I'm gold standard already, you know, before you even say. And when I got awarded it, I said, well, I would have been very surprised or disappointed that I wouldn't be gold standard, because I know, and Warren Services is seen as an exemplar for what we do for our size of company. across the country.
So the 5% club then, you can't put your apprentices in it and get extra training for them. It's almost like a standard, essentially.
It's a standard, yes.
Okay.
And now they're going to formalise that standard. And now the big boys, more big boys are joining, like Coca-Cola, Aldi and Lidl and all people like that. Because, lots of companies want to stamp, don't they? We belong to this because it says something about what they do, their passion and everything like that.
So when you look at the youngsters that you've got now, do you say 30% of your workforce have come through your apprenticeship scheme?
Yeah.
Then, have they?
Yeah.
Wow. And do you lose any? Do you lose any?
Lose some, but not that many. We've now just appointed another one, and it's quite a funny one. Well, it's not funny. He, when we were in the old school, he used to live opposite, and he'd already done an apprenticeship as a mechanic. And I got talking to him or whatever, and I thought, you could work for me. I'm looking around. So I wrote him a letter, and I think to this day he's still got the letter, saying, I'd like you to come and work for us. So he came and worked for us, and he did an apprenticeship in mechanical engineering. And then he excelled at that. And then he did another apprenticeship in electrical engineering. And then he's gone on even further then. But this week, or this month, we've just made him, he's manager at one of our factories. So, and he's not alone, there's others there. So we've got a progression there. You can't always take from outside, but he's now managing one of our factories.
Because one of the things we hear a lot around the sort of, let's say the M40 corridor motorsport valley, is that some of these small SMEs train up guys, they train up apprentices, and then they lose them to these bigger companies, and that really worries and concerns them. They struggle to compete to pay them the salaries.
Well, like Gio would say, when you come there, you've got to. Sometimes we might take a job on because we know that it's going to enthuse the young people, but it also enthuses us as well.
So it's more about the money, isn't it? It's getting them into your community.
It isn't you've got to. That's important. Let me just say, you said about motorsport. Many years ago, not that long ago, motorsports. When I went, I get invited to a company, a motorsport company or whatever. One of the F1 boys. Do you try? No, we haven't got time to do apprenticeships or whatever. They've now only woken up to the fact that they're now starting to do it, because all they would do was rob off of one another and everything like that. We do lose some. When one of my early apprentices left me, and I thought, bloody hell, I've spent all this time training him up. But then he went up and set his own company up.
And that must give you such pleasure and joy.
After the being annoyed, thinking I've got him there. Now I'm thinking, well, you're only doing, Richard, what you set out.
I mean, going back to your apprentices and my visit, what stuck out to me was the tasks and the challenges that you gave your apprentices, and the challenges that you gave them, for me, would be an incentive for me to stay, because you're challenging them all the time. And I can remember you giving them projects in automating a complete process with Autodesk, so everything was paperless on the shop floor. I believe William's working with apprentices on electric cars, these are really exciting projects. Can you give our listeners some examples of the projects that you give them? And I think that this probably is one of the reasons that you've got such a great retention rate.
And it isn't just projects. I can remember we've had a stand at Subcon before, and I took one of my apprentices up there. And very shy guy and everything like that. And afterwards, he thanked me. He said, "Thank you so much." He said, "Because I've been able to see how you engage with people. Because, when you go to shows, people just stand on us like this. We're out there, And he said, "I've learnt so much." And then another one, we got another guy now who came on from university to do a year out. And he was up at another show. And I'm talking away, and I said, "Oh, so and so," and he wasn't prepared for that or whatever. But afterwards, he thanked me so much. He said, and now he's just won an award for something or whatever. But it's throwing them into something that they're not familiar with, and projects.
I always think it was the making of my career doing my apprenticeship, because I left school at 16. All of my colleagues and friends stayed on at school to do their A-levels. got quite lost into what they wanted to do and where they wanted to go. And to be fair, a lot still today have not really achieved or got the career footing that they wanted. Whereas although I wasn't sure about what I wanted, by going and doing an apprenticeship, getting thrown in at the deep end, getting the mickey taken out of me by the instructors, getting told to go and have a long wait, a box of sparks, a tin of stripy paint. Yeah. You learn, don't you? And by the time you're 19, if you do want to go out into the market for another job, you've got, you've got working history, you know how to deal with people, like you're saying. You know how to turn up in the morning, and you know how to clock out at night. And you got to be there 5 days a week. That ethic is part of an apprenticeship. That's part of training, isn't it? Massive, massive part. Richard, I wanted to ask you, if you had to quantify, how many people do you how many apprentices do you think you've taken on and trained in your entire time? We talk about 30% of your workforce now, but if there was a number to put on it, do you think?
Well, somebody's written something the other day, and they said 60. I don't know what it is. But I don't care really how many it is. And it's Warren Services don't just do what we do for Warren Services. We do it for the whole community and everything like that. That's what it's all about. You say about projects. We got one of our lads Will just threw a robot at him and said, I want to do this, make it work. And he's now taken that robot to the college and presented there and everything like that. They're literally thrown in at the deep end. That's what you've got to do. I think
it's brilliant. I mean, I was an apprentice like Paul, as well as a tool maker like you, Richard. And I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was at school, but you're actually working with the schools from the ground roots. How important is this? We had a podcast not too long back with Fanet, didn't we, Paul? And we were talking about perception, about rebranding engineering. What have we got to do to get more young people into engineering? You're obviously doing a fantastic job, but you're few of many, really.
Yeah, we suffer that we don't get any females. We've just had a female welder leave us. She came to us from the UTC, but then she didn't want to go on and do an apprenticeship, which was very disappointing. But we took her on because she wanted to do welding or whatever. But she didn't really grow with us because she didn't. With an apprentice, you go out and learn other things or whatever. So, immediately you're saying, I only want to be a welder, but you can't just be a welder. You've got to be able to lay things out and everything like that. That's one of the big goals we've got to get over. And there was a push at the moment, but you can't. But now I was just saying to you earlier, I'm now working with primary schools because during the pandemic, me and along with others realised that some of the kids didn't have enough equipment at home to be able to work from home and everything like that. So in Thetford, we've got a fantastic community. We raised quite a lot of money for laptops for the school. And at that time, I was only thinking of getting laptops for the academy. But to be fair to the guy who runs Academy, Dan Carter, he said, be quite honest, Richard, the primary schools probably need more help than us. So in a short space of time, we raised a lot of money. I can't remember what it is, but we got 100 laptops or something like that. So quite a bit of money. But then I thought, well, we don't just want to stop there. We've got something in Thetford called the Thetford Business Forum. It's about 80 companies, all different, not just manufacturing. I said, what we need to do is the businesses now know, the schools now know what businesses can do. We need to find out. So we've got 10 feeder primary schools in Thetford, and I'm now visiting every one of them. I've visited 5 now. And some of the passion of some of them head teachers and everything like that. And Thetford's, in some, we've got some quite difficult areas and everything like that. So I said to them right from the beginning, look, we're not just going to write checkbook things for you or whatever. We want to see how we can help. And there's one thing, I went into one school and they've got some redundant wooden recreation equipment and it needs taken away. So we got. You probably heard of men's sheds. Have you heard of men's sheds? Mm-hmm. So I've gone to our local men's shed and talked to them, and I've now got to go back to the school. We think that we can get that. So it's, and also you're pulling people together more, isn't it? Whatever.
Well, I think in schools and maybe schools. What Fanet were saying the other week about having little cobots and robots in canteens and 3D printers that that kids can go up and use, and maybe small CNC machines that they can make bits on, would then lead them into, you know, what we do. Because without that, you don't understand what manufacturing is and how to make a part. However, you get a youngster on an aircraft, although they might not be interested in engineering, but they're certainly interested in how that plane's made, how the wings are made, how it stays up in the sky, and all that. I know you don't go on planes, Gio, but there's stuff like that to me, I think if you got in at the grassroots, a nice little 3D printer. My daughters, I think, if they had 3D printers, they'd play with them, they'd make stuff, and then they'd realise that that's part of manufacturing. That is part of you know, building things.
Well, I've just been, funny, you must be reading, Mum. Was it yesterday or the day before? I went to a school and she's already engaged with a local UTC. She's already heard about William and she wants to get a robot into the school and everything like that. So, but, you know, I mean, I've just thought of something now that my son calls it butterfly. I have to keep thinking. But, you know, I mean, you can get one of these little 3D printers. You can make it yourself. So, you know, I mean, we could possibly get one of our apprentices to go in and build this little kit to make the 3D printer or whatever.
Yeah.
So...
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And no, it's been a great podcast.
It's been a brilliant 36 minutes. We've gone well over time, Richard. We normally keep these down.
Just one thing I want to finish on, really. I think Paul had an idea of doing digital CVs for kind of colleges and stuff like that, something that maybe we could work with together instead of actually having a written CV, that we actually film the CVs.
Right. No, don't turn that off yet. I've got another little...
Keep going.
Look up something called I Can Beer. That's a website where you can go on, and if you're thinking about doing a certain job or whatever, that will let you know what you can do, what you need. And all right, these youngsters at primary school, they can be, what have I got to be doing? So they're planning their future ahead. You know, you've got your daughter over there and your other daughter who's thinking, shall I go to college or university or whatever? Look at I Can Beer. Generally at the moment, it's only for Norfolk and Suffolk, but they are looking at it going nationwide. If you look at that, and the lady who runs that is somebody called Yvonne Mason, another one I'd put up alongside Julian Nix. Incredible. You know, I mean, she's the one who's really driven the UTC in Norwich, put her own money behind it and everything like that. Serious money. But I Can Beer, you go on that and look at I Can Beer. Unbelievable.
Will do. Richard, last few words. Future for UK manufacturing, post-COVID and all the rest of it, and post-Brexit too.
Well, we're excited. Whereas before we used to be a standard subcontractor, we're now building complete machines. We're doing work on pill coaters, all stainless steel, everything like that. We're making balconies. We're still doing all the stage equipment and everything like that. It's going to take off, and we're ready for it, along with many other companies. All right, supplies are difficult at the moment. You know, we're challenges. We're working with the Japanese on a special project and everything like that, but it's great working with you guys, and thanks for inviting me along today.
No problem, Richard.
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, love to see you. Thank you very much. What a fascinating podcast. You can obviously visit Warren Services' website to see what they do as a company. And of course, if you're a youngster listening to this, feel free to contact Richard to see whether you can potentially join his organisation.
And if anybody wants to know anything about apprenticeships, don't hesitate to get on to me, and I want to help everybody. That's the way forward for us in this country, apprenticeships.
Good stuff. Brilliant. What a podcast. Join us next time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the MTD Podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on MTDCNC.com.